We've been on a journey during the Advent season, how far to Bethlehem? And last week, we got to Bethlehem. I once got some really good advice about marriage and travel. Someone told me, travel is intensified living, so don't marry anyone you haven't traveled with. Because when you travel with someone, you learn how flexible they are, how polite and gracious they can be with underlings who are having to navigate changes and difficulties that aren't their fault. You find out whether they're creative. You find out whether they're rigid. You find out whether they won't plan anything or they have to plan everything, whether they get easily flustered when things don't go their way, when they get unexpected circumstances, how do they behave? Those are good things to know about somebody. Recently, my sister said she'd heard that there are 3 kinds of traveling retired people. So apparently, according to her, retired people are either go-go travelers or go-slow travelers or no-go travelers. Some of you have already identified your category. There are a lot of ways to take a journey. You can pack a bag and go on a plane. You can get in a car and drive somewhere. You can walk around your neighborhood. Sometimes reading a good book is like a journey. Certainly, relationships have journeys with lots of unexpected detours, right? Most of the time, when we take a journey, we return to where we started. But if it's been a good journey, a useful journey, a healthy journey, we may return to the same place, but we don't return the same. Journeys, good journeys, change us. Sometimes we aren't even conscious of the changes until we get home and we see a different person in the mirror of our lives as we discover some of the things we learned on our journey. So lessons, some things we may want to let go of, some things we may want to make a permanent change for. This time last year, I was in the first week of a 2-month renewal leave. I had done this once before in my 43 years of ministry, but it was in 1999, so it had been a minute. And I had a friend who was also considering a renewal leave, and he asked me, what were my plans? And I said, well, 25 years ago when I did this, I had a lot of plans. And I didn't need that many plans. I shared with him a couple of the plans I made. I said, but it really had nothing to do with that. The renewal leave wasn't about accomplishing something. It's not a sabbatical where you come back having written a book. I said, and it's not a vacation. It's designed for renewal. And I had expected during my 3-month renewal leave in 1999 to experience some rest, some peace of mind, a sense of catching up with myself, but that didn't really happen. I'm sure that had nothing to do with the fact that I had a 3rd grader and a 6th grader and my dad living in the house. But last time, I explained to him, I said, and I think that's what will happen this time. It was after I came back, about 6 months later, I noticed that there were some things about the way I lived and worked that had changed. So I knew to expect that this time. Now, my point, in case I took too long to get there, is that a good return is important to a good journey. A good return, a turn, is important to a good journey, whether that's a relationship journey, a health journey, a work journey, an educational journey, or a spiritual journey. How we return is key to a good journey. Now, the Magi are the last characters to make an appearance in our nativity story. They're the last to come to Bethlehem. Scholars like to talk about where they may have come from and how long it took to get them there. Some scholars suggest that Matthew is intimating that they're Zoroastrians, because at that time, Zoroastrianism was the religion of the East. It was monotheistic, and it was the only thing that was as old as Judaism. So, there's some scholarly argument about that makes them more compelling to his Jewish hearers. They also note very often that some time has really elapsed. They saw the star, they traveled. Matthew says they came to the house where Mary and Joseph were. So they're not in the stable anymore. And they saw the child and knelt down and paid homage to him, not the baby. So at some point after Jesus is born, Mary and Joseph have found a house, and we heard, well, I'll get to that in a minute. So now that we've ruined the whole picture of the three wise men coming to the scene of the nativity, and we've pretty much wrecked We Three Kings as a hymn, let's dive into what the scripture is actually telling us so we can mine the wisdom that's there for us. Matthew tells us that these magi, magus is the singular, we get our word magic from that, but it doesn't mean sleight of hand. It means sage, wise person, someone with a lot of spiritual knowledge, traveled some distance from the east to pay homage, and that's where they got into trouble, to the king of the Jews. That's where they got in trouble with Herod, whose birth they saw in a natal star. So these are people who studied the stars. This fits with the whole Zoroastrian theme. What is clear is that they were seekers. For a couple of decades, church growth people talked a lot about seekers. And what they were trying to convey to churches and pastors is to not make assumptions about people who walk in, not assume that they know where 2 Corinthians is in the Bible, or that they know where the bathroom is, just to remember that people are often looking for something and they don't necessarily know what it is. We are made to be looking for something, and we often don't know what it is. We just have this feeling. Whatever the Magi saw in the sky, it urged them to get up and get going, even if they didn't know what it was, or where exactly they were going, or how exactly to get there, or what they would find exactly when they got there. They must have been seeking something. There must have been some drive in them seeking something, or they would not have been watching the sky. And when they were watching the sky, that they saw a star is very clear in ancient culture, that they were looking for something sacred, holy, spiritual, divine. They were looking in the sky. They must have felt deeply compelled to undertake such a long, precarious, and dangerous journey. Scripture doesn't tell us how many of them there are, but I don't think there were 3. If there were 3 of them, they certainly traveled with a whole caravan. No one goes from Persia to Palestine unaccompanied. It was dangerous. So however many of them there were, they went together. You've probably heard the old proverb. You want to go fast, go alone. You want to go far, go together. And if you want to be safe in a journey such as theirs, you go with a crowd. So, what are you seeking? What are you seeking? What are you really seeking? What should you be seeking? Not that question. What do you imagine you're seeking? Not that question. What are you really seeking? And here's how to tell what you're really seeking. Check your calendar and check your spending. Look at your calendar, look at your spending, and that will tell you a lot about what you are really seeking in this life. It may say that you're on overdrive at work or at home, super mom, super dad, super employee, that you're seeking reward or success or recognition and fulfillment. None of those things are bad. Maybe you're seeking approval, also not a bad thing, or escape, and who would blame you? Do you seek tranquility in disturbed relationships, hoping that family conflicts will settle down or disrupted friendships will be healed? We are made to search for more in life. There's just a hunger, a longing. We don't even always recognize it as seeking, but we are seeking something. We are made to seek. It's part of our human condition to not only have a longing, but to always also never quite be satisfied. When I look at this story, I notice that apparently most people weren't looking. Or if they were looking, they didn't see what the wise men saw. Or maybe they saw it and they just decided to stay home. Maybe the story is telling us that we need to look up, that we need to be curious, and that we need to be willing, and that we may have to make an effort we'd rather not make. Does any worthwhile journey of vitality of body, mind, or spirit not require effort? Of course not. Do any of us get very far along alone? We don't. I wonder if the Magi saw something in the sky no one else did because they were looking for something sacred, for something divine, something maybe a little scary, but very promising. They were looking up. They were curious. And they were willing to take a risk, a big risk, for something good. One last observation about gifts. The gifts of the Magi, however many there were, are referred to in Scripture as extremely valuable. In spite of the fact that most art has them carrying a little box of something, probably they were in a whole caravan, and Scripture does say they opened their treasure chests, not that they opened their treasure boxes. So I really kind of imagine something that looks more like, you know, that pile of stuff that you see all the jewels and the treasure in Pirates of the Caribbean. You know, that's what I imagine. We don't really know. They probably did have camel loads of stuff, though. Here's what we do know. Mary and Joseph were not wealthy. We do know that. And shortly after this story ends, we hear the story about how Herod notices that the wise men did not come back and report to him because they were warned in a dream not to go. So Herod puts out a decree that all children under the age of 3, all Jewish boys under the age of 3, and now you can tell which are the Jewish boys under the age of 3 because they're circumcised, they're to be slaughtered. There's some historical evidence that such a thing may have happened. Herod is like, I hate to tell you this, but this kind of behavior is just another day in the news cycle for Herod. But Joseph is warned in a dream to take Mary and the child and flee to Egypt to escape Herod. So they go to Egypt. It's a long ways away. They don't come back, theoretically, I guess, presumably, until Herod dies, which is 2, 3, 4, 5 years later. What do you suppose they lived on all that time? Maybe Joseph found a job, but, you know, jobs for handymen, carpenters, there are plenty of them, but you usually have to know somebody. So Joseph is leaving a steady job where he goes to Sephora every week to work, and he travels. What did they live on? Maybe a little gold, frankincense, and myrrh. Every one of us has gifts. Every one of us has gifts. And we don't know how God is going to use those gifts until we start to give them. We don't know how God is going to use those gifts until we start to give them. Part of the way God returns us from this journey is by using us to be of value to other people. The God who is doing a new thing in this story is promising to do a new thing in you. Now, Terry Zero is going to finish this sermon. She knew. It wasn't a surprise.
I knew at 8 o'clock this morning. No, okay. One way we continue to be of value in the lives of other people is through our support of the Fullerton College Rising Scholars Program. And Rising Scholars supports students who have been previously incarcerated, either in juvenile hall or as an adult. As the new semester approaches, we will once again be collecting school supplies for these students. I had some slides. Are they? Oh, yep, there they are. These are some slides from last semester of just a few of the students who were choosing from all those supplies that you provided. I also want to read just a portion of a message I received from the program director. These essential resources provide students with the practical tools needed to succeed in their academic journey, allowing them to focus on their studies without the added stress of securing materials. Having their own supplies fosters a sense of belonging, reduces financial strain, and boosts confidence. Additionally, and I think this is very important, these donations signal to students that their community believes in their potential, which can inspire resilience and dedication to their education and personal goals. So I will be at the door with a list of needed supplies and to answer any questions you might have. And the supplies can be dropped off in the Fowler Lounge or in the office Monday through Thursday mornings. Thank you.
They went home a different way. They went home different. Has a new ring to it, doesn't it? When we return home different, it's hard for home to stay the same, and we become compassionate change makers in the way of Jesus. Thanks be to God.